travelers coming to Lagos, and Abuja is the national capital. For that reason, they were now going to put the lockdown on Abuja and Lagos, forgetting that it is mainly the Igbos, the people from the southeast and south-south regions, who are these travelers that travel abroad, they are very mercantilistic, they travel around a lot. So that the same people who come into Lagos, but they don't stay over in Lagos. They transit to the southeast. So for that long, focus has been on Lagos, not on the southeast regions. And thus far, a testing center was established in Ebonyi State not too long ago. States like my state, Imo State, are celebrating that they have had no COVID-19 index case. But that does not mean that there is no COVID-19 case in Imo State. But just as simply, there is no testing going on anywhere in the state. So the government utilized the opportunity to the cue from the federal government. And instead of getting the people to key in, for it to be a people-centered approach, for the people to buy into the efforts to either contain contain COVID-19, they rather took it as a punitive measure. All across the south and south, you see governors coming on board to announce crippling sanctions for states that have not even gotten any wind of COVID-19. There is total lockdown across the states for 2-3 weeks now. Those who are into market cannot even open their shops, and they don't even understand what is going on. Something terrible is out there. But because the government did not bother to have the people buy into COVID-19, the people are now seen as a them against us. It is the system against them. If the government had taken it upon themselves to reach out to the various town unions, to reach out to the various market unions in the market and professional bodies, the artisan groups, get them on board, explain to them what is going on, explain to them the calamity that's about to befall us. The people, there won't be this resentment, this resistance towards what should ordinarily be helpful to our people. But we started wrongly. We started wrongly by trying to hit them on the head. You must. And the government unleashed the security personnel who the people don't even trust. You unleash soldiers, you unleash the police across the southeast. And what do? They begin the killings in the southeast. There was a time when we had over 22 people killed for COVID-19, when we still had a fatality of less than 10 across Nigeria. Unfortunately, most of these killings were in southeast and south. And these are areas where the government did not even bother to explain to the people what was the issues. So the problem we're having in the southeast and south regions is that we have neglected to carry the people on board. And once you don't carry them on board, no matter how wonderful what you're trying to do or what you're trying to roll out is, it simply will not fly. Because our people must get the people on board. We must get the people to be part of this process. We must explain to them. Because what I see happening, what I see coming on is that we are having a tsunami coming towards us. Now, the tsunami is no longer 500-600 kilometers out there in the sea. We are already seeing the tsunami hit us. And what has the government done? Almost approach an army-like dictatorship punitive measure, which is not going to work. The people should be made to, because the people are encouraged to buy into the process. Government will begin to do things like go to about on the cluster, on the Navy clusters, and ask people to begin to produce face masks. We're going to even try to see how they can produce the ventilators. These are not impossible. People are very creative, but you have made it appear as if you don't need the people. That the government can do this by just putting palliative measures, crooked palliative measures, by the way, and then they lock down. There is no end game in sight for the so-called lockdown we are doing. So if you look at it in the long run, because we have failed to carry the people along, we have failed to put the people on board, we have failed to encourage the very essence of people, which is the town unions, the artisan groups, and the market groups, even the religious bodies were kept aside. And somebody in government house in the various states just came out and was announcing all manner of dictatorial stuff that will not sink in. You see our governors making a lot of mistakes. The governor of my state, for instance, announced that he was closing the borders of Imo State. Which borders are you talking about? People are moving around everywhere. The governor of Ebonyi State just announced that he was going to, he authorized the security personnel to flog people of Ebonyi State. I mean, what do you intend to achieve? Are they your slaves? These are people who will bear the brunt of COVID-19. So it should have been the initial focus of government to get the people to buy in. I keep on repeating this word buy in, because if we don't do that, no matter how altruistic, no matter how beautiful what government is planning to do, as long as the people are not on board, it's not going to work. And we must go back. Is it too late to get people on board? No, it is not. It is never too late to turn around and begin the right things. It is never too late for us to go back and get the town criers, our traditional rulers, our market leaders, our religious leaders, those leaders people know, get them to get the people to be involved, to explain in the people's language what COVID-19 is all about. And then we discover that we become more better prepared. But the way we are going about it now, the tsunami is less than, in fact, it's within eyesight. We are seeing the tsunami approaching. There will be an avalanche of deaths, an avalanche of very horrible happenings in our areas when this thing hits landfall, when it hits shore. And the hitting shore is a matter of days. Let us not deceive ourselves with the figures coming out from the NCDC that there is no, or there's in fact, the figures that the figures they are bringing out, trying out, is contrived. It cannot be realistic. The problem is far worse than what it is, but we have to get across to people and get them involved. So for that will be my certain comments. I hope I'll be able to, based on how the discussion goes on, I'll be able to chip in stuff as we go on. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Ezeluche. I mean, he has made that point, and that point is been very, very well made, and resoundingly so. The issue now is we probably will have to give him a couple of minutes. If there are questions, if there are feedback to him, that, you know, if you have any direct questions, if you raise up your hands, we can give you time to speak and ask these questions, and let Ezeluche answer that question. If you please just click and raise up your hands, then you will be given the floor to ask that question. Please, sorry, one more house rule, please. Ensure do not unmute yourself unless you want to speak, please. The background noise is getting too much. Thank you. Okay, so if we do not have questions, then I will move to the next speaker. Okay, in that case, I will take it that what he said. I mean, this in my place they say good talk has no answer. That means what he said is straight to the point, and we all agree that there is nothing else to add there. So, Marcel, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Marcel, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. I requested that maybe I'll make a co-host so I can share my screen. Let me be sure. Can you see my screen now?
Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we are. You are sharing something. Yes, we can share. We can see that. Yeah, hello. I know, I've seen him.
Can you see my
So, do you want me to give after myself?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I see that's good. Go ahead. We can see the screen.
Marcel, we can see you. Go ahead. You have Nigeria. You are comparing Nigeria and Pakistan. Are you going to war?
So what this did was to So around the myth that was going on, one, that Nigeria is in a temperate region, but not allow the virus to survive. That's one. So if you Nigeria and Pakistan share the same weather, the temperature in Abuja as at 12 of today was
Marcel,
Yeah. Who is this person? He's not the one that.
okay, sorry for that little glitch. I think Marcel, your internet is really a little bit cranky. So I don't know. Let's try again.
They're just trying. They're trying to connect. My voice is clear.
so I will just to move fast so that we don't wait more. You see, state becomes what back. Although Nigeria has a higher GDP than Pakistan, Pakistan population was slightly bigger than Nigeria. But if you look at the population growth, that we all have almost the same curve. So use these two countries for comparison. Okay. So what I want to do is to share the data and statistics out these two countries. Okay. So let us see. Now in place, I have a distribution of cases per day per country. Nigeria has around 873. You could see
Yeah,
other countries.
The person that we move
Just
on the microphone, the speaker.
I have. So once more, Marcel, I can I can't hear you. So can you try once more, please? Your internet connection is bad. Okay. While we sort that out, so that we don't get distracted here, I want to recognize Marcel. You're okay. Go ahead. For some reasons, Marcel, I cannot hear you. For some reasons, Marcel, I cannot hear you. So, okay, so I'm going to take over now. Please, if you can hear me, what I'm going to do, it appears we have bad connection with Marcel. I'm going to give him time probably to change location. And I want to recognize the presence of the former Minister of Aviation, Chief Osita Chidoka, Iko Bosi. I want to give him the opportunity now to speak since we cannot hear Marcel. Iko Bosi, you have the floor. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you very much,
Mazezoke.
Zizu, and everybody here. First, I would have loved to hear Marcel's presentation. He was looking to me like he was going to be dealing with some issues that all of us have been thinking about, if Nigeria is a peculiar case. So hopefully before the end of this conversation, we're going to hear him. But going straight to the question that was asked, there was a vital question we asked for this presentation. Where are our governors? What is the Southeast doing about this? And how are we handling this situation that is upon us now? One of the most important things for me in this conversation is the fact that it is a crisis and we can turn it into opportunity. Turning this crisis into opportunity will require that we think in a more localized way. Nigeria is a very vast country and you can't find a solution that cuts across. So let me give an instance. We have 3 major airports. Let me start from my aviation background. We have 3 major airports in Nigeria for influx of aircrafts. So we have Lagos, we have Port Harcourt, and we have Kano, Abuja. The government had closed all international airports, but they've left Lagos and Abuja open. So all the goods coming in from China now, test kits, PPEs coming from China, lands in Lagos and in Abuja. The governor of Rivers State have said he doesn't want aircrafts coming to Port Harcourt. So they are very happy to do that because what that means is that in the absence of testing kits, you can in the southwest, you can share it in the north from Abuja. There is no vehicular movement between the north and the south. Southeast and the south-south, we're losing out on the Chinese products coming in for the country for test kits. So it is important that we think strategically in managing this crisis. We need the airport in Port Harcourt to be open. I've tried to reach out to the Rivers State governor for flights concerning essential materials and logistics. Now, the hub of logistics in Nigeria is Igbo transporters, and the transport industry has been brought to a halt. If you come to the US, the biggest beneficiary of this crisis is Amazon. Amazon stock prices have gone up because Amazon is the backbone that is supporting all distribution now. So we need to, again, think about the logistics of moving things and people at this time. We need to get back our government, our Southeast government, to open up for those vehicles that are moving valuable essentials to keep moving. All these announcements of closing state border, closing state boundary, sometimes is simply idiotic. Now, there is also the food dimension. All the yam that you eat in rivers, in Abia, in Imo, in Enugu come from Benue and Taraba. So if you close 9th Mile, you are blocking out food coming in from the northeast down to the southeast. So again, we need to think about it. More importantly, I think that some of the responsibilities of Nigerian states have come back to haunt us. The fact that the Nigerian states, which have the responsibility for collecting income taxes, do not collect income taxes widely, means that there is no way for them to give out palliatives to people.
Exactly.
The only people paying income taxes are civil servants and those in formal employment. So they really don't need the money. The people that need the money are those that are not in formal
sectors.
employment. So the fact that in the tax net of states like Anambra, you have 200 and something thousand people in a population of 4 million. In states like Imo, you have about 300,000 people who filed their last taxes, predominantly civil servants and public servants from the federal government. So we as the Southeast, the governors of the Southeast have to go back to the basics. This crisis have taught us one big lesson, that we cannot build skyscrapers on top of mud. So we have to go back on to the basics. And what are these basics? The basics is that people in Canada, people in America, in Germany, are receiving checks from their government because there is a two-way communication through the tax returns for which to verify citizens. Secondly, we need to also understand the importance of having data. How many hospitals do we have in the Southeast? How many hospital beds are available for us in the Southeast? How many have ICU units in the Southeast? How many doctors in the Southeast are able to help in the matter, who can be mobilized in this crisis? Because don't forget, most of what you see in the Southeast today, most of the doctors operating in Nigeria are of Southeastern origin and South origin. So we need to figure out where are they located and how are we going to be able to utilize them. So my major point is that where are our governors? Our governors are absent because they're incapacitated. The Abuja money has weakened state capacity. The money we collect from Abuja every month has made it difficult for our states to perform basic functions. And one of those three basic functions I've identified in the last few days online. First, we need to have the capacity to collect personal income tax. How people fight. It doesn't matter how much they are paying. The matter is not how much they are paying. The important thing is that every adult citizen has to have a tax ID through which the government can get back to that citizen. Secondly, we have to have all our houses, cities mapped and houses, streets named and numbered. It is critical for you to use as a matter of course to talk about households and how to relate to those households. Third one, we need to have a birth and death register of those who have died and those who have been born, so that the state can tell you with certainty, this is where our populations are. This is how our populations are trending. This is how our people are moving. Now, this crisis has offered us an opportunity for our governors to come back. The restructuring that we're talking about, you can't restructure inefficiencies. So when there are inefficiencies, whether more latitude, you will only be restructuring inefficiencies. It will come down to haunt all of us. So we need to get our government in the Southeast to come back to the basic purpose of government. The purpose of government is not security vote. The purpose of government is not the sharing of stomach infrastructure. The purpose of government is not in awarding contracts for building of roads. The purpose of government is to be the interlocutor, to be that organizing philosophy that makes it possible for the interplay of forces to be managed. So one of the reasons why I think this conversation is critical for all of us in the Southeast and for all of us who are here today is to say that our sentiments, our thinking of Nigeria should come back to going back to our states and performing the basic functions of state. Those basic functions are critical. In times of crisis, that is what you build on to be able to manage those crises. You cannot build you cannot start using what you haven't built on. It's like you haven't done exercise before and you want to run a marathon. It can't happen on the day of the marathon. You have to have planned and you must have exercised for long enough to be able to run a marathon. So on a final note from me, I think that this is a very important conversation and we need to cascade it to understanding that the biggest restructuring, the biggest referendum we can have as a people is to go back to our government and understand the purpose of government. The purpose is not security vote, and it is not in the distribution of laches from Abuja. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Chief Osita Chidoka. Very aptly put and excellently marshaled out. Now, before I, let us have questions. The question from me will be regarding the issue of river states and yes, and the federal government. From you've been an aviation minister before. Yeson Wike clearly said that he has the right. I mean, there is issue of jurisdiction here. Who has the right to fly into Port Harcourt? Whether the federal government can actually allow people to fly in, or are they just that Wike can do anything, or is federal government right actually to allow for that flight that came into Port Harcourt that led to that conversation, is federal government right to do that? Or is Wike basically bragging for bragging's sake?
Well, I must say that aviation is on the exclusive list of Nigeria. So the governor cannot, the airports, you can even build your own airport today. The moment you finish constructing it, it becomes, only the federal government can give you the power for aircrafts to come in there. So internationally, Nigeria is recognized as a country in ICAO, the ICAO, and the reason for that is that all the rules pertaining to aviation is on the exclusive list of every country. We deal with countries and not subnational governments. But what is critical here is that this is not the time for this debate. This is the time for us to clarify issues and see how we can solve a crisis. We're in the middle of a war. A house is burning, and you are questioning which fire service is allowed to turn off the fire.
Exactly.
We cannot be turning off the fire. We cannot debate about who can turn off the fire now. We need to put off the fire.
Exactly.
So for me, what the governor of Rivers State have to understand is that, yes, you cannot allow people to private aircrafts and commercial flights to come. But flights that are bringing essential services, flights that governments have authorized to come. In fact, the government of the Southeast and South-South should actually ask the federal government to open it up immediately, because that's the only way they can distribute materials between these contiguous states. There is no way to drive from Lagos all the way to Enugu now to bring in materials that are being distributed in Lagos. Rather, they are distributing it within the Southwest. From Abuja, they are distributing it within the North. There is no way to drive from Abuja now to Port Harcourt. So my own attitude now is that the debate about who controls what, we can have it after this event. But now is that we seem not to understand the magnitude of the problem before us. So the problem before us is that we have an existential crisis, and we need to pull all our eggs. We need to get all our boats aligned in one direction. And that is critical.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see that Daniel Elumba has raised his hand. Dan, do you have a question?
Yes. My question is with regards to Professor Chukuma Soludo's article today. I don't know whether some of us read it. It is just as beautiful as what Chief Oster Chidoka has just given us now. Yeah. But Professor Soludo was kind of the opinion that African countries cannot afford a lockdown at the moment. In the UK, there is an argument, a debate going on now as to whether what is our priority? Is it to preserve life or to allow economic activities to continue? So the UK is now trying to see where do we strike a balance between having a lockdown to preserve more life, and then at the end of the day, how does it affect our economic activities? My question to Chief Oster Chidoka is this, please. Do you think that the Nigerian government and our governors in general who has implemented this lockdown, do you think that adequate consideration has been given to the issue of how do we maintain a balance between preserving life and allowing economic activities to continue? And if they have not, where do you think the balance lies? How do we strike that balance? Well, that's to say, how do we strike that balance between helping our people to maintain social distancing so that this coronavirus will be able to delay its transmission or even minimize the death? And also, when people are saying, well, people are dying of hunger as well. One person wrote an article saying, one woman said, I'm more interested in stop not dying from hunger than not dying from COVID-19. So where do you think the balance lies? How do we handle this issue, please?
Okay, Dan, thank you very much for the... Sorry, Esther, before you go, I want to take another question from Obio Suji so that you can answer the two questions at once. Obio, it's over to you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So go ahead and ask your question so that he can take the two questions at once.
First, I was going to ask whether you had forgotten that Q&A presentation or not.
No, I am. I have you here, but let's finish with the question. Then we'll get to the next person who will present.
Okay. Now, I want to ask Chief Osita, and I didn't get from him is, now where do we want to situate the issue of testing? Because it's like we're kind of glossing over the reality of COVID. The Southeast keeps on recording low numbers, and as well as the South. What should we be doing about testing? Where does testing come into all this fray? That's the principal thing I want because I think COVID is the issue here, and to some extent, whatever we want to come up with, whatever practical solutions we want to think, has to also stem from the reality of the problem of COVID. I don't know if you got that clear.
Yes.
Well, yes, okay. So, starting from the last issue, the issue here is COVID, and the issue of COVID is multifaceted and multidimensional. The inability to test is linked to the inability of governments to have access to testing equipment. The inability to have access to testing equipment is linked to the fact that we have brought on ourselves a lockdown. So we are going to be discussing the issue of COVID. What is happening in other countries is that governments have risen to the occasion. Now, taking it to Soludo's point of view, I had a lot of conversations with him before now about how the lockdown is not necessary. And I'm happy he took this position on the lockdown, clarifying that it's not sustainable. I don't think it's sustainable. But I've also learned a few new things listening to the regular briefings from the White House. Dr. Fauci, the doctor in charge of, I don't know what is in charge of the NCDC here, the CDC here, made a very important point. He said, number one, we don't understand this virus. Number two, this is the first virus that we are seeing that you can transmit. Being asymptomatic, you can transmit it. Secondly, it's the same virus that we see that you can distribute through surfaces. So the fact that you touched a surface now and somebody comes back in 1 hour to touch the same surface can transmit the disease, the virus. So because we don't understand it, that is part of the reasons why the lockdown is like a first reaction. It is not the solution, but it's a solution to first of all understand the virus. So I think that we will all be careful, we will all be more tentative in our views as we go on. Whether we can afford a lockdown is also as important as whether we can afford 1 million people being sick and needing respiratory equipment. It's also the same question about whether we can afford 5 million people being sick, whether we can afford 100,000 people dying. These are all parts of the moving parts we know. But I think that in the last 3 weeks, a lot has become known about the virus, and more will be known over the next 1 or 2 weeks. So what we need to do is to start a phrase I have coined. I call it restart without spreading. How do we restart without spreading? And how to restart without spreading goes back to the issue of testing. We need to have massive testing going on, because that way we can begin to talk about restarting without spreading. We cannot talk about just restarting the economy for the restarting sake. If we just restart, we don't know what is going to happen. I only have one hope. I think that the Nigerian and Nigerians generally may be more attuned to handle the symptoms of COVID better than the Europeans and the Americans are handling it. We already suffer from a lot of malaria, fever, and flu in Nigeria. People go and buy over-the-counter anti-malaria drugs, buy over-the-counter anti-typhoid drugs. So we're already consuming a lot of antibiotics and chloroquine and all that. So maybe the impact of the virus may not be strong on Nigeria, but we need data to prove that. And the only way we can get that data is by testing. So I think that what is facing us today is lack of state capacity. We need our state governments to rise up every morning and tell us the status. What do we know? What does our teaching hospitals know? What does our institutes know? How many people that have been tested? Have we tried to test for antibodies? To see maybe whether this virus has been with us since January. I don't believe that all the Igbo traders who went to China in December, who went to Wuhan, did not bring back this virus as early as December, January. I don't buy it. I believe that this virus has been somewhere in the Southeast far longer than we know now. That's my own take. But we don't know. We need to test. So I totally support the idea that we test. And for the Soludo's view, I also say that we should all be more tentative. We need to restart. We cannot sustain this. But let's be a little more tentative in making sure that we are restarting without spreading. because spreading is going to be very, very traumatic in a country like Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll take one more last questions, and that question is coming from Chris, Honorable Chris Azuborg, sorry. So, Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much.
So, do you have a question? You raised your hand. So, do
yes,
you have?
Yes, I have a little bit of suggestion to what OC said about the airport. Basically, River State, Port Harcourt Airport carries both cargo and passenger, but we have in Owerri an international cargo, Samba, that can be easily used to receive cargo for Southeast. It's very important that we can. And South Owerri is very aptly located that it can serve both Southeast, South. It can we can move goods from Owerri to up to Calabar, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Bayelsa, everywhere. Owerri Airport is strategic and is the heartland of Southeast. So it can serve both South and South. And it's an international cargo airport. It can obviously cargo craft landing in Owerri. So we can actually get federal government, and between the governors of governor of Imo State and federal government, I think it can be a workable. So if we suggest that, there's some sort of we can receive the PPEs and the test kits and everything. The truth is that we need to make haste and start proper, comprehensive and massive testing in the Southeast. It's important that we receive all the needed equipment for us to start testing in the Southeast. Like you mentioned, it is obvious that we are more exposed to the challenges of COVID-19 than we have seen. We must do a lot of testing for us to be able to ensure if the occurrences are as low as we are being reported. See what happened in Kano. When you don't do proper testing, even Abuja, somewhere in Mabushi, behind the Ministry of Work, because there's a slum there, what we have seen in the last few days is horrifying, very horrific. So it's important that we increase our ability to test. So if we need to receive test kits from all over the world, so we can do a lot of testing. Then an issue of closing comprehensively. We have the opinion that the entire Southeast economy will not be totally closed. Like you said, we must make sure that we observe all the needed, take all the needed measures, but not cripple our economy, because we are mostly an informal sector where people need to go out on a daily basis for them to earn a living. So we are going to be considerate in whatever we do, and we can also use it as an opportunity to stimulate growth. So these are the things that I feel that OC can look at when he's but I'm in support of what he has said, especially with issues of data and everything. But when I contribute my own, then we'll have another perspective. But
Okay.
I'm talking to OC on the issue of our airport. Thank you.
Okay, so Honorable Azubogu, I put this question to you. You rightly said that the Southeast can actually, I wouldn't use the word upsurge, but at least the Southeast can actually take the traffic that ought to go to Port Harcourt if Wike says no. Now, the question is, if that is common sense and is available knowledge to everybody, why are the governors of the Southeast, or why is the governor of Imo State not in the forefront championing this?
Yes. The truth is that when it comes about knowledge or information or understanding of situation and circumstances, if somebody who is strategically positioned does not present such a situation, like if our conversation now, yes, because we're in a crisis situation, a lot of people, things can elude some people. They might not know that this thing is possible. But the issue is that we are not calling for passenger aircraft. We're talking of cargo flights coming into the country. And if we are looking at easy logistics for Southeast and South, or is properly designated as a cargo airport, not mostly for passengers.
Let me correct an information. Honorable, Owerri has been called an cargo airport, but there are conditions precedent that hasn't been concluded.
Exactly.
So that needs to be concluded before Owerri can become an international cargo airport. Those things have not been completed. They were ongoing from Stella Odua's time, from my time, but they are slowed down. But the work is going on partly, but it's not yet, and it cannot even operate night flights. So as it is today, with special permission, international flights may land there with special permission. But if there are big flights like a 777 or anything bigger than the A310, you won't be able to go to Owerri as at now. So Owerri is still not yet on the international radar as an international airport. I just want to add that. Yes, but in principle, the government has given approval for it to become an international cargo airport. But there are still conditions precedent to that happening.
Okay,
thank you very much.
So
Just
thank you
like
very
said, that
much.
we're in a crisis situation.
Yeah, we're in a crisis, so we can always make amends and see how we can alter it. The critical thing is that and the South, and I think Wike is getting the point. I mean, his initial attitude was that the oil companies should not violate the lockdown. But now I think he's getting the point that, yes, they shouldn't violate it, but he should allow the essential equipment to come in. But for the Southeast governors, I think we will be in the forefront of moving for logistics to be back on track, because the major logistics, informal logistics companies are owned by Southeasterners. We are the hub of logistics in Nigeria. So the Southeast is very strong in goods logistics, while the North is very strong in petroleum logistics. All the tankers that you see operating in the downstream sector are mostly owned by Northerners. And the Northerners, you can notice, they own a lot of tankers. And just by way of some history, the reason why that is prevalent in Nigeria was that in the 1960s, in 1962, the Nigerian Railways went on strike, and there was no way to move granules from Kanu down to the port. So the government of the North took a decision and funded Northern businessmen to start buying trucks to move their granules from the North down to the seaport. That is the origin of Northern dominance of haulage in terms of trucking business. So every crisis is an opportunity. This opportunity has again arisen. This is the time for us to get ABC, GIG, and all these companies again to become very critical to Nigerians' logistics backbone, especially for the purpose of bringing in equipment, testing, and jobs.
Just like I said something, Osi.
Yes.
Yeah, Osi, just like we said, if the bigger aircrafts moving commodities or essentials into Lagos and Abuja,
yes,
other aircrafts can move because of the challenges we're having.
Yes.
Goods into Owerri for Southeast. Because we need those equipment. We need the PPEs for the health centers, for health workers.
It is for us to ask for it, because there are no aircraft waiting to go anywhere now. So somebody has to demand for these things. We have to get, if we are going to pay airpiece to move it. I don't like this idea of us turning airpiece into a Father Christmas for Nigeria.
No, that can be.
Pay for airpiece to go and move those things from
his business
allocated to Southeast. But that's a very valid point.
Okay, thank you very much for the contribution. So I'm not going to take more questions. We are going to go straight to Marcel, who has his presentation on the screen. So Marcel, will give you the final opportunity now. So let's give it one more time, one more go, and see if it works this time around. Go ahead. I hope you change your location.
Okay, thank you so much. I've started to shut down my video, so I'll go without the video. So what I basically did was the comparison between Pakistan and Nigeria, and there's a huge difference. I would like to summarize the data. Within 1 week, based on what Nigeria has reported, between April 18 to April 17, Nigeria was only able to do 2,100 and something tests, while within that same period, Pakistan did over 50,000 tests. So these are countries that almost have the same GDP, the same population, virtually everything in terms of World Bank calculation. So there's a problem within our testing facility, which I think Nigeria really need to look into. Now, I also went around to look at what is the actual cost of testing. And if you look on my screen, this is what I got from Forbes. The serology test costs between $10 to $20. And what they basically did in the UK is that people can actually go and order for the test kit with around this price. When you order for the test kit, you can take the swab yourself and put it in the tube and seal it and return it through a mail. And then after that, within 5 to 10 days, you'll be able to get your results. So they basically did that in order to increase the number of tests they can do. So that means that citizens that can afford to do this test on their own would be allowed to do it. But what we have in Nigeria is that once the CDC doesn't come to you, nothing happens. So maybe we need to think of changing our approach to testing within the country. So let me talk in terms of the economy. Which way for the economy, and how do we quantify the loss that we're having at the shutdown? Now, there is what they call statistical cost of life. You know, if you Google it, statistical cost of life, it tends to put a price on a citizen based on the country. In the US, the statistical value of life is around $10 million per US citizen. So you understand why the US is ready to send their marine to any country to rescue their citizen. I try to do an analysis of the statistical cost of life in Nigeria based on the data that's available. I'm getting around between $5 million to $6 million, and that's extremely high. I mean, if
Million
my life
dollars.
worth $5 million, there's no reason why Nigerian government should allow Boko Haram to just snuff me out like that. But based on the data available, I can still share this data. So if the statistical cost of life of an average Nigerian is, say, let's say to be conservative, $4 million, if you multiply it across the number of expected deaths, I based on my graph, I did a fatality rate, and I was able to extrapolate that within this time we could have this level of deaths. And then if you multiply it by the statistical cost of life, you begin to see how much that will cost us against the cost of locking down the economy. So there has to be a balance between these two. Now, the question again is, let's assume we're able to get through this. I am one of those that actually had made a case for a lockdown, but in a managed way. I mean, you could do a kind of a community lockdown, but then for you to do that, there has to be massive testing. Those people that have been tested and those that haven't tested, people should be able to know their status. Now, in terms of activating the economy, let's assume we go through this, the economy comes down, or that how do you activate the economy? I'm seeing a lot of options. One is the share the money syndrome of the Nigerian government. They're giving out palliatives. And you begin to ask, who are those that are getting these palliatives? No data, nothing. Then the other thing that has been proposed is to give tax incentives to companies and individuals. So as a government employee, you have been paying tax over the years, and this is one of the most difficult times. And government can say, okay, I am giving you back as part of the tax you have paid over 1 year. I'm giving you some part of that for you to be able to take care of that. And then the other option is to allow low interest loan for Nigerians. Now, the most important thing in reactivating the economy is allowing money to flow. Allowing money to flow. And how can you allow money to flow? Is it by dashing money out? No, because the money you dash out goes into a debit in a particular account that you have to pay someday. So allow money to flow means that give people the opportunity to get interest at a very low interest rate, not the current interest of interest, but maybe around 2 or 3%, and then mandate them, maybe give them a master check with a period that they can spend it. And that's the only way you can make the economy move faster. So what am I looking at again? Now, if you look at my main advice, because after looking at all the statistical information available, one of the things that came to my mind is what I would call government transparency index. You can't lie this thing out at all. Even if you say that things are not happening in your country, the data that are coming out are showing otherwise. Comparing you one-to-one with countries that doesn't even have anything but are conducting tests are actually giving. So our government needs to invest in data. And I'm not saying federal government needs to, but I'm saying state government. How does a governor make his decision? Gone are those days where you do God's feeling and say, okay, I feel this should be this. Okay, I feel this guy should need this. There has to be a data-driven, a kind of a decision-driven, a data-driven decision that should guide you. And how do we make this happen? We need to activate state statistics units. The states needs to activate their statistical unit and be able to provide the government with the insights that they need to make their decision. And what I would say is this: leadership without insight is blind leadership. Leadership with insight is purpose-driven leadership. And for us to have a purpose-driven leadership in any region of this country, the government must realize the importance of data, invest in data, and be able to use the modeling and insights that come from data to make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcel. That was very short and concise. Now, while you were saying something about how much it costs to do a normal test, that is $175. £175. Now, calculating that to what pound stands today with Aboki FX, it comes out at 87,500 naira per test, whether you're negative or positive. Now, the question is it something that, because are we going to keep on holding on to the government, or is that something that people can, the citizens can do? If the United Kingdom is doing it, if you have the money and you think you have COVID and you can afford it, you can order the test kit and do the test kit yourself. Do we think it's something the government in the country can somehow probably engage on. I can see here that Dan Elumba has his hands up. I'll let you ask your question.
Well, I wanted to ask a question, but I noticed that some others also have their hands up. Please,
oh, okay.
Since I've asked question before, let's allow others to also to ask.
So that's fine. I'm not seeing any hand. Hold on.
I see Ume Clinton, Ezudo.
Okay, hold on. Who?
Ume Clinton has his hands up. Ezudo has a hands up.
Hold on. Clinton.
Ejo Eguatu has the hands up. No.
Okay. So now I'm going to Ume Clinton. Please, can you go ahead? You are now on mute.
All right.
Yes.
I think my question is this. So on the issue of statistics, according to our constitution, census is on the exclusive list. So I want to know, is there anything that the state governors can because going by what we have, it will be practically impossible for them to conduct a census. That's my question.
Honestly, I'm just struggling here to understand the link between the census and the testing. So
I think there is a nexus. Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Yeah, there is a nexus because every speaker here, from Chief Kidoka to Marcel, have highlighted the importance of data. And I think, let's hear from them. What do they think about, can state governors conduct a census to enable them plan? Because Marcel said without planning, without data, you can't plan. Chief Kidoka said we need to know how many are dying, how many are being born to plan. So I see a nexus between that question and the... And
okay, so Osita Chidoka is raising his hands now. It's like he wants to take out the question.
So, you see, the problem in Nigeria is our fixation with titles and names. The word census means enumeration. So there is a national census, which no state can conduct. But there's also a state census, which a state can conduct. The Nigerian 1999 constitution gave a lot of powers to states. It's just that the state governments are like those house dogs. After you've kept them in the house for so long, when you release them to go to the wild, they keep coming back to the house. So that's the problem. A state can enumerate its citizens. In fact, a state in fact need to know its citizens. So when you live in a state, there are two ways a state can know its citizens. One, they can collect the data from the federal government in terms of the federal census. Two, they can do an enumeration. In fact, if any state has been planning now to do a state enumeration, this was the time. This is the time they could have done it successfully. Because all that is required today is a mixture of both physical enumeration and online enumeration. Those who have phones can fill the forms online, the educated ones. The uneducated ones, in every community, we can appoint the President General of that community, in the case of Anambra, or local government, any local government thing, to be able to bring up what I will call enumeration points. So what is happening is that no state, no country, no government, no entity can survive without data. We need a situation where every state in Nigeria can tell you. I asked a governor once, how many approvals have your development control department given for new buildings? He doesn't know. Nobody knows who gives approvals for new buildings. Our city planning, one of the things about the 1999 constitution, urban planning is not in the exclusive and in the concurrent list. It is residual. No federal government is required for you to do urban planning. The federal government cannot participate in urban planning. Yet, no state in Nigeria have planned a new city from scratch. All the cities we have were the ones the colonial masters did for us. And if you notice where the colonial masters planned and where our subsequent cities developed to, you will see the planlessness that followed afterwards. So I think it is critical that we go back to the issue of what I call state enumeration, state census. You can conduct one in your state. You can enumerate your households. There is nothing debarring any government from doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think, Marcel, that question appeared to have been also directed to you. You've raised your hand, so you go ahead and make a contribution.
What I want to say is that
Hold on.
data is.
Go ahead. Sorry, quick, just 30 seconds.
Data is everywhere. Let us not overflow this thing. Data is everywhere. Is for you to set up the mechanism to be able to capture this data. Okay. So let me take my village for instance. If you give me a template, I can give you all the names of my kinsmen and extrapolate it to their siblings, how many kids they have, and all that. And people can aggregate these things from the different villages to the local government, from local government, and pass it on to the state. So again, what happens is that when most of these things come, our people always think of contracts. They want to make money and all that. And then you can actually design a data capturing system that will have some level of integrity. I can move around with iPads that I could be able to pick a geolocation of my respondents. I can have them use their hands to just sign signatures. I can capture their image on the spot. So it is a game of the state government actually being serious about this thing. And let me be honest to you. If any state government is serious about data capturing, this thing can be done in less than 12 months. So that simply means that within a particular tenure of 4 years, any state government that really gets its ass together, map its things within local governments and the regions, can capture data and have a consolidated data that he can use for decisions. Because again, when we are talking about this data, it's not for the citizens, it's actually for you to make the right decisions. That is the bottom line. And I don't know how you make decisions without having data, without having insight. Based on what?
Okay. So thank you very much. So now I'm going to allow the next speaker because we are running out of time now. Obiosiji, can you get ready while I take the last question from Ezudo? Obiosiji, after the question from Ezudo, you can basically do your presentation. Ezudo, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Mine is not a question really, but maybe a comment. I want to thank Iko Bosi, Osita Chidoka, and Honorable Chris for their wonderful insights. But my point, I want to refer back to what that Chidoka said.
Sorry, Ferdinand, we cannot hear you. Your line is gone bad.
So I was expecting that we should be looking at if we keep on. Hello?
You come back on. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead now.
Okay, I said my point is, I was thinking that as a people, we should be discussing what should we be doing as a people. Now I look at what the coalition, the coalition of businesses, I think in Lagos, Dangote, Emefiele, and all those guys, they've been able to raise 25 billion naira, which they are committing to the COVID-19. These are the kind of solutions that I think we should be, discussing and looking at. If we keep on bashing, the governors and all that, I don't think that's going to help our people. Because we are here I live in Anambra State. So every day we're in the communities, we are seeing the challenges, we are seeing what the people are going through. So these are the kind of things that are discussions that I want us to be holding. That's just my comments. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to put into solutions at the bottom. So when we finish, so yes. Can we quickly can you, Obiosiji, please, can you take the floor? Marcel, you can now do away with your, your presentation. Thank you. Obiosiji, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I'm going to cut into the chase and forget about the phrase because a lot has been mentioned that I wanted to speak about. Therefore, let me just go straight and just highlight 3 areas since we're looking at practical solutions. I had mentioned testing, and I think there's a consensus that testing is important. The question is, how do we go about it? I just want to think that rather than wait until you have the testing kits and all that, I don't think there's anything stopping the respective state governments from going into the communities, collecting samples. All with that is important to be done is to make sure that you have proper records of the samples you have taken, and then take it to the respective test centers, whether it's the one at Ebonyi or is the new one in Anambra, and let us look at what the results are like. And then we'll begin to have an idea of the level of infection that is prevalent in the southeast and south-south. Iko Bosi did say something that actually, I had once thought about, that it doesn't look like this virus came in just about the time it was discovered. We got the index case here. I believe it must have gotten even to the southeast as far back as January, if not December. That's my thinking. So the question is, and that should be something that should engage some of those who think in the southeast and south-south, what exactly is happening? Why are we not having people dying everywhere and finding out why they are dying? Are they dying from COVID-related issues? I think we should be asking such kind of questions now, if that's important. Then the second one quickly now is the issue of insecurity. If there's anything I think I've learned about what is happening in Lagos, it is the fact that the lockdown has brought about insecurity in Lagos. And because you have who
you are frozen, Obiosuji. Okay, so while Obiosuji is probably going to get back his connection, I would have Moses ask his question. Moses, your hand is raised. Moses, are you there? Okay, I think Moses is not ready. So
let's have Honorable give his presentation. If please, let's have Honorable Azubo make his presentation, if you don't mind.
Okay, so that's fine. So Honorable Azubo, can you please, if Osuji or Obiosuji, probably when he comes back, he can finish up with line of thoughts. Honorable Azubo, now it's the floor is yours.
Can you get me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much for having me. I am Chris Emeka Azubo. I want to quickly say that on the case at hand, there are key issues we need to look at. Our economy is mostly very informal. When we lock down, we will want to work in such a way that we protect our people from getting infected with the disease, and but also make sure that they are sustained. Because basically our source of livelihood, most of us, 85% of our people are in the informal sector. They need to go out every day for them to earn a living. But because we're in a state of war, there are bullets flying around, and COVID-19 is like a bullet. You cannot see it coming. You don't know who is going to hit. Just that people going out of hunger to go kill themselves. But we need to do what you have to do. There must be a balance. Because that we need to drive our economy somehow, but we need to protect ourselves. If, for instance, you want to take a blockage of our bank, so that you can't even anyway. I think most of the statements are very political because actually the total lockdown is not very enforceable. Okay, you can see a lot of people moving around, but the danger in it is that engaging a security men to cause havoc by killing people. But the truth is that we have to. The governors are trying to the best of their knowledge or the best of their ability, but we have critical challenges. Like we mentioned earlier here, somebody talked about database. We cannot truly plan without proper demography. And like we said, the Constitution made it very clear that the birth registration is solely handled by local government. We've tried to say that there must be compulsory registration of birth and birth at the national level. Some of them brought out the 1999 Constitution, made it say that it is duty of local government. And who controls the local government? The state government and the state assembly. So if we really want, we can start building data, ensuring that whoever that died, there must be proper death certification before burial. For every child that is given birth in the state, there must be proper registration of birth and issuance of birth certificate by the local government. So all these data have to be put together for us to upload and have proper demography. By the time we start planning, we can easily have a fair idea of people we are planning for. Social services cannot work without proper database. You need to have information to plan your social services. Whether it's going to be at national level where you give a social security number for every citizen. So it's important we have that. You can't overemphasize. But what we need to do at this crisis now, to provide food for people, we can look at it. We as a state, or states in the Southeast cannot boast of providing enough food. Any government that cannot, or a system that cannot provide enough food for the citizens have totally failed. We are depending so much on other people too. So we're looking at where we can create opportunity for better, to better items. If we have red oil, if we have gari, if we have other things that we need to get other people to supply to Southeast, like people that have grains and vegetables, we need to open up and look for a way to, between government to government to state government, look for a way to get in items for people to. We're trying to move goods around so that people will have food to eat. A lot of people are complaining. The danger we have is that in case of managing the challenges we are facing today, we might end up having more challenges than that because there might be social uprising if we extend the total lockdown when people cannot afford to eat. Already there are issues of people going to steal food, cooked food, uncooked food and everything. But somebody called me this evening and said that his pot of soup was stolen. So we can see the kind of challenges. But a lot of people are living in slum where transmission is very easy. So we're afraid of community transmission, whereby because of crowding and living in the slum, the impact is going to be very heavy on us if measures are not taken. So, and like Ikobosti mentioned, none of us can say that the South is free of this. The reason being that we've not tested enough. We must look for a way and other testing kits for people to go into where we have large number of people to ensure that there will be enough testing. But we must do this bearing in mind that we will not kill our economy completely because we need our economy to sustain our people. We must take measures to show that we must have graduated lockdown. We can't lock down. If there anywhere we have index, we can ring-fence the place, make sure we narrow down all the contacts and make sure that we do the needful to make sure we eliminate the impact of the infection. But we will not say that comprehensively we will lock down everywhere, people will not do anything and will not drive anything. No. Both of those do agrarian, farmers, because we are going to have a post-COVID effect. But the truth is that it is a great opportunity for us to change the way things are being done in our place. And for us, after this, everybody will know that we'll go back basically to look for a way to feed our population. Agriculture and the entire value chain must be developed. We are going to build up opportunity whereby we will not depend totally on other people to feed our population. We have to look back on this. And all of us, both those who are in policy making and those who are going to drive the economy, because there's a way we can all meet. It is between the businesses and government to interface for us to provide solutions. There's a lot of opportunities here, and there's a lot of information that we can share. And we believe that we have a lot of people who have better insight on what needs to be done so that we can do things in a better way. Solutions are available, and we can engage all ourselves to provide better solutions. But for now, the challenges are here. We are happy that oil have crashed to the bottom so that nobody's going to be depending on oil anymore. State governments are not going to depend on fat for them to drive the economy. It's just going to be, it's looking at what Obara did to sustain the southeastern economy before, develop industrial parks, develop agro-industrial parks, develop our farm settlements again, go back to do into real sector, productive sector. And once we do that, it will create opportunity for our young men and women who are coming out of school to be gainfully employed. However, there are 3 critical sectors we must look at. We must look at agriculture, we must look at industry, we must look at science and technology, because we must ensure that we drive innovation and technology and creativity. These are the things we are going to do first, but we must harness that. I want to specifically thank Professor Morris, who is doing a great job with his laboratory in Enugu. He's doing well, and you can see what he's doing. Also, thank Professor Soludo with his Afri heritage and others, who are also developing solutions to things we are going to do. So when we look at it, we have plenty of other people who can. We throw away RAP, research and production, which metamorphose into product. A lot of the things we are going to, challenges we're having today will have been solved through R&D. We have all the key brains driving R&D globally are from Southeast and South-South. So we can harness them, and they are willing to work with us. And everybody that we can, we must make sure we go back to drawing table and make sure that we drive ourselves to take control of research and development, industrially, not only in industry, all spaces of industry,
Honorable.
in pharmaceutical, in agriculture, in automobile industry, which can even metamorphose into locomotive and aviation. So we have, also I mentioned it, that we control logistics. That is true. And from there, we can do a lot.
Okay.
But above all, we must invest heavily in science and technology in our states. Southeast must drive the technological development of the country. We must own it, we must assume it, and we must drive it.
Okay,
From
thank you very much, Honorable.
That's all we need to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable, for your contribution. I think we'll have the last presenter, Nonye Obodo, before we now take the general questions and solutions way forward. This is not a talk shop. What are the actions? What are the actionable things, items we can take away from this call? Okay, so Nonye Obodo, go ahead.
5 minutes, please.
Is Nonye no longer in this call?
Chief Chidoka is raising up his hand, please.
Okay, so Nonye, if you're on this call with a different name, please let me know because I can't find you here. At the same, I can come back to you. Then let me allow Chief Osta Chidoka to.
There are also other people raising up their hands, please, if you can recognize them.
Yes.
Okay. Just quickly, I have another conference call to join.
Yes.
So I want to make my suggestions on way forward. As Karl Marx rightly said, philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point is to change it. So the point we are here now is how do we move forward?
Yes.
Number one, I think we all agree that we're in an existential crisis. The world is in a crisis that hasn't happened like this. As British Airways said, since after the Second World War, this is the first time British Airways aircrafts are parked in their tarmac in London. Dubai has almost 200 aircraft parked on the ground. So the world is in a difficult situation. I got a paper this afternoon before this started. In all the previous recessions in the world, oil prices have only fallen. So we kept earning money while we were going through the crisis. This is the first time we have a crisis where if by the next 1 week, people don't start buying oil, we will have shortings. Our oil wells will be closed. And when they are closed and we reopen them maybe 1 or 2 months down the line, it will take about 3 months before we can start earning any income from there. So Nigeria is in a dire situation. I just don't want us to play with this idea. We're in a dire situation. Without oil income, we cannot fund any of the things we have in plans. We can't even do the testing that we need to do because that is the short term. In the long term, we can always go back to agriculture. Yam will take you 6 months to grow. Exactly. Corn will take you 7 months. And then you put it on a ship and then you export it to somewhere foreign exchange. And for us in the Southeast, what has impacted us greatly is that our diaspora are not working. So they are not sending money back home. If the diaspora was working, we will be sure that $100, $200 will be going to our mothers and grandparents and $1,000, those building houses. So our economy in the Southeast is vulnerable to diaspora income. When you hear Nigeria got 15 billion from diaspora income, majority of it comes to the Southeast. So we're impacted by diaspora income, we're impacted by oil income, we're the least zone in Nigeria with IGR. Generated revenue is the lowest. In fact, the combined revenue of the Southeast states is less than the revenue of Ogun State in terms of IGR. So we have a serious problem in our hands. So I think that the opportunity I see here is that we will be pushing for a quick reopening without, like we said, without spreading. But that is to say that we can conduct what I call a laboratory kind of experiment. States like in the Southeast can begin to open gradually and see how we can manage it, that the country can copy an example from us. We have an opportunity because of our small land space in Anambra, in the whole of Southeast, to see whether we can, by the communication with our churches, see how we can restart our economy and let the world copy a new model of restarting without spreading. I think that is the greatest opportunity we have now to showcase. We have a strong community system, we have a strong town systems and church system. So maybe we can be the example the world is looking at. Where can people restart without spreading? How can we fumigate distill our markets? How can we do transactions with less of cash and do money transfers more to avoid cash being the purveyor of transfers? So I think what he needs is the spirit. This is not even time, as people talk about contributions and money to build centers. I don't think that in a war, what we need now is the armament. What we need now is actually the bullets. What we need now is how to get people back to work, because I've told you the three sources of our income have been impacted. Diaspora income, oil income, IGR is the lowest. So we need to make our daily earnings. So I think that if this conversation is about the Southeast, what we need to do is to show how can we show an example of how an economy can run without spreading the virus. And also, we can also go into testing antibodies to see whether there has been a larger number of people that have gotten the COVID and how they have survived in the Southeast. As another example, we can offer ourselves as an example to the world that we think this disease has spread here. Maybe more antibody testing can be done, as Emirates is now doing. Emirates is pioneering testing before a flight to ensure that people who are boarding the flights, have been tested. So I don't think that we should dwell so much about our mistakes of our past, but I think we should accept them and begin to put in solutions to them going forward. But the most important solution now is restarting without spreading. So I will be out of the video so that I can connect to my next call, but I'll try and be listening on to what is going on. I just hope that we can continue this conversation, and those of us with access to our government, I see that Chidi Odinkalu is here. I see that Val Ozigbo is here. Akachukwu Wampo is here. So these are all people who have access to be able to talk about how can we create a new model of restarting without spreading. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, as you said, you're getting into your next call. I want to use the opportunity to welcome Professor Chido Odinkalu, and you are now on mute. So if you have any contribution to make, the floor is yours, Professor. I'm sorry for taking you on the spot.
Sorry. Good evening. Thank you for organizing this. Sorry, I just wanted to listen in and.
But I caught you then.
Because I've been using the chat function.
Yeah.
No, this has been enlightening in many ways. But as I said in the chat, this is not a university seminar.
Yes.
And we've got to address our realities. And I listen to the data and all of that. It makes sense, but Nigeria is not a logical society. You understand? And so when I hear people talk about data, I laugh. Why do I laugh? Jesus. As necessary as it is, this is not the time to discuss it. Look, Lagos did enumeration of Lagos in 2009, under Tinubu, right?
Yes, 2006.
And they've shown we can do it. But why is this not the time to discuss it? I will explain to you. When you count people in Imo State or in Anambra State, in Abia State, most of our governors or governments are not going to be counting our people. They are going to be equilibrating to Borno State or Niger State. We don't count honestly because we think that if we deliver numbers that will potentially be less than what they would deliver in Borno State, we will get less money. So we shoot ourselves in the foot by not producing credible, honest numbers. So we have an underlying political economy that destroys all of the theorizing we are doing. Mm-hmm. So I want to try and be practical. If you go to Nnewi right now, as we speak, the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital has closed its gates because the doctors are afraid of being lynched by people who have medical needs. And they're afraid of dying from exposure to people who potentially have contracted or have COVID-19. Those are our practical realities. You are in a situation in which Ochendo has returned to his village and is calling parties, and he says that
he's got malaria.
Ochendo Adazi,
yeah,
right?
He
says
malaria.
That his malaria was baptized to Now, these are the practical realities we've got to deal with. A state in the Anambra is the most enlightened state in the southeast, and it is the state in which the state governor has exercised prerogatives to discharge its alleged or reported COVID-19 index patient. How do we address these existential realities of our context? The southeast is a landlocked territory. Prices have been driven up by uncoordinated responses. And we can't even get our southeast governors, 5 of them, to meet. Everyone is announcing different policies. In Ebonyi State, the governor says, flog anybody who is not wearing a face mask. This is the level at which we're operating, and we're talking about highfalutin stuff. I'd really want to suggest, can we bring this down to the level of the practicalities that engage us?
Okay, Prof, now you've hit the nail, the level of practicality that engages. Prof, can you now please, because at the end of the day, we've started this conversation. We want to end this conversation with suggestions that we can work with. Now,
we have universities in the southeast. We have assets. We have huge human assets. Can I suggest we concentrate on identifying our assets?
Okay.
Can we say our universities we have virology departments in the southeast. Can we have those people, the universities, assembled for some sensible response? So scientific advice for our governors. Can the governors be made to agree to that? Number one. Number two, we've got transport and logistics capabilities. It's not just GIG, it's the lot of them. Can we, if we're talking about reopening without infecting our people, we are going to have to establish mechanisms for doing that. One possibility is introducing manifests for all road trips and mechanisms for governing that. Can we get road transport owners in a conversation with our governments as to how to begin to document? So instead of doing data prospectively, can we do data situationally? And work with the asset basis, organized asset basis we have to begin to create channels for management, so that instead of shutting down our entire government, our entire economy, we create channels and mechanisms of management. These are just 2 illustrations. I could go into other areas.
Thank you very much. I mean, that is very well taken. Now, I want to bring in Valentine Ozibo. Please, you are now on. Valentine Ozibo. Valentine Ozibo, are you ready?
Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Quite interesting and enlightening. Let me just start off with a conversation around how long this has been. I know we're moving on to next steps and way forward, but
solutions.
It's important to. I listened to a doctor speak out of Abuja who said, was narrating a story of someone who visited, I believe, the US or the UK, came back with symptoms similar to COVID-19, but didn't realize what it was. It wasn't until he eventually got information that one of his staff in Makurdi had been diagnosed with this COVID, that he realized that what he came back with was actually COVID, meaning that quite a lot of us, as early as December, already might have contracted this. But she went on to say that part of the reason why the infection has been curtailed a bit is also could be because of the fact that we are not in a flu season yet. Flu season for us coincides more with our rainy season. And part of why we may be seeing this a bit more preponderant in the Western world, because they are already in the flu season. So I don't want us to live in any euphoria that we are immune or we are less affected. When I see data out of US saying that, in fact, in places like New York, 70% of Black Americans are falling victims of this. So we need to be careful to think that we have any sense of security. So what this means is that the worst may yet to come if indeed we move into rainy season in full, which has already started.
Okay, sorry, I'm not cutting you short here. Sorry, I'm not cutting you short here, but I'm just like, can we get to the point straight? What is your suggestion to D as a solution? Okay, what are you suggesting?
So I just provided an information on that, and now I want to talk about the COVID. We've mentioned this here before regarding what the private sector is already doing. Logistics may not actually be impeded at this time. As we speak, I'm aware that quite a number of trucks of food items, including test kits, are going to be delivered by next week. And they're going to be shipped from Lagos, and it's going to cover the southeastern states. So the idea of a wooden open airport, we may run a challenge. Yeah, that exists, but the truth is, if the intervention, the coalition of private sector intervention on COVID are able to make good their promise of getting it delivered by next week, we may have at least a good sizable number of test kits and food items, rice and gari and all of that delivered across the state. Hopefully, those will be transparently managed and delivered. And there's also a bit of actions being taken also by the Victim Support Fund, which is led by T.Y. Danjuma. They were able to use Air Force craft into places like in the north, and they can also do the same thing even in the east. What I'm saying, therefore, is we may not be impeded or affected by the lack of the closure of airport in Port Harcourt. There's still a need for us to fully understand that. Then let me talk about very quickly. I like what Professor Dinkala said about the way forward and getting the virologists in the universities. By the time we have all of these test kits and get the enumeration done, we are going to be able to get better information to see how we can make progress. But again, taking the words of my dear brother Sister Chidoka, we have a big crisis at hand. We are going to go into a dire, depressive economy, and it's going to, in fact, get to depression because it's not just going to be a quarter, it's going to be for almost the rest of this year. There's need for us to conserve as much as we can and be smart about our investment and see how we can survive this situation. There's a lot of need for people who are doing well in the Southeast to honestly do the much they can to support the government. This is the time we ought to be as generous as we can in terms of providing palliatives, in terms of providing also test kits. I am aware that, for instance, the former governor of Anambra State, Peter being His Excellency, is also ordering some test kits. I'm privy to such information. So we need to get a lot of this going. Let's cut the cheese and get the right things done right now. There's no time to waste. We unfortunately are dealing with a lot of inefficiencies of the past, but we have to make sure that we get this underway as much as we can. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to be calling on Eze Nonso Gregs to please make your contribution. You are on now. Eze Nonso. While Eze Nonso is making his contribution, Moses and Obinna Osuji, please get ready. Eze Nonso. Okay, so Moses, can you please go ahead if Eze Nonso is not ready?
Okay. Good evening to the discussants. I hope you can hear me very clearly.
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. So mine is a contribution with respect to what one of the speakers, I think the honorable member, said, and also, coupling it with what Osita Chidoka said earlier on, with respect to looking inward to, providing solution for the case at hand. Looking inward in the sense that if you look at the way people are recovering, like Osita Chidoka said something that it seems we manage the situation more than the Western world. Now, but unfortunately, it seems we are still depending on the solutions of the Western world. And I think we can actually look inward. Now, if you followed the narratives of the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, on how he recovered from COVID-19, you understand that he says something about using black seed oil, honey, and vitamin C. And all these things can be sourced locally. All these things can be gotten locally. Now, Professor Morrissey, who also came up some time ago and said, with all conviction that he can cure this particular ailment. There's also a professor in Michael Okpara University, Professor Zibe, that once, told the world that he has found a cure for HIV/AIDS. Now, he also came up and said he had the solution. Now, can't our governors engage people like this? Can't the government of the day engage them? Engage them with both NAFDAC, Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, Nigerian Medical Association, and all the other, medical professionals to, look at what they are saying. Because from what we are even hearing now, the COVID-19 is not widespreading in countries like India because they are using all these local solutions. So I'm thinking instead of highly depending on Western solution, of course, even on the news today, Chukwemeke Ezife, the former governor of Anambra State, was also making allusion to the fact that many people are recovering faster by means of the local solution, by means of herbal medicine and so on and so forth. So I think our governors and the government of the day can be called upon to engage some of these people to know whether what they are actually claiming can actually be put into tests, and also whether all these local solutions can also be put into test to know whether, if we succeed, as a matter of fact, Nigeria can provide solution to other part of the world as far as coronavirus is concerned. So that's my take, and I also put it as a question to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moses. Now, Obiosuji, you are on. Please go ahead and make it very snappy. We are rounding up, please. Obiosuji, the floor is yours.
Back into the practical things we can do. Concerning testing, I think we can set targets. The governors can decide to set a target of how many tests can be conducted that is realistic within the time frame we have. That is one of the areas I'm looking at. And like I was trying to suggest, I said you can go into the community, take samples, take them over to the respective labs, and then come back. The results will tell you if truly we have massive infections or not. Then again, I think the Southeast South Governors Forum should be resuscitated. I think it is moribund as it is. It should be strengthened. Why? For the sake of coordination in case of other crises in the future. Now they can copy from what the Southwest has done. They have a more structured organization where you even have the Director General in place. What can be done? It's a matter of comparing comparative advantage. what does state A do better than state B? We can look at this in order to stem, what the kind of opportunities that is derivable from this kind of situation. For instance, can the states look at, should this COVID become a pandemic, become quite endemic in the southeast and south-south? Is it possible to look at how many ambulances are in place? Can we look at, if Imo State has only 3 isolation centers and they are overwhelmed, how much can Anambra take? How much can River State take? How much? We should be able to look at such kind of things and prepare ahead of time. Another area I think that is also very important here is the issue of insecurity. Now, I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here, and I'm assuming that tomorrow COVID becomes endemic, and then you are calling for a lockdown. Let us learn from Lagos. One of the reasons I feel that Lagos is getting more infected is because of the 1 million boys who are going from one community to another. They should be carrying this COVID along with them. How do you now begin to make the so-called community policing effective? How can we begin to educate our community police people to address this in a humane way and not repeat the same kind of vandalism, the same kind of rascality we see amongst the police recently? I'm not trying to malign the police anyway. Then again, finally, without taking much of our time, the issue of awareness. If you want the people to buy into this, why is it that a Mazi can stay at home beyond the issue of him being able to provide for himself and his family? What drives him to stay at home is because he fears COVID. How can we make the people fear COVID? How can we begin to make them look at this as a worse situation? That look, life first is the man who is alive that can begin to think of what he's going to eat.
Okay.
And therefore, I suggest that look, let us begin to see what our respective radio stations can do. Most people may not have television, but a good number of people have radio. Can we begin to speak to our people in Igbo? Can we begin to highlight the dangers? Can we also begin to get those of Igbo stock or those of River stock who have like one particular Miss Dafinone who survived the COVID attack? Can we get her to speak in her language? Can we get those of Igbo stock to speak in their language? To the people, let people understand that this thing is real. When we do that, possibly, people can begin to take responsibility for their action. Then one more, please, before I go away. Since we are talking about practical things we can do, I think we must learn from Governor Ayade, whichever we want to look at it. People should put on masks. If you want to look at the go between lockdown or
okay, you've made excellent point, and
lockdown.
Okay.
People, then the infection will be limited. Let me leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the point you've made is basically reinforces the points made by Professor Chidodin Carlo. Basically, it's about the assets identification. Where we could probably have scientific advice, and you added a point that is probably have those that have recovered to come on in local languages and share their experiences. Perhaps, and not only sharing their experiences, at the same time, they could as well share their experiences with these, mechanisms for reopening, as Professor alluded to, that if we have professors, if we have universities that can actually look into this, into this pandemic. Therefore, I'm going to be calling on Ikechukwu Udemezwe now. You are on. And Chinenye, you get ready. Only 2 of you. Then I will hand over to Dan Elomba. Then we'll wrap it up. Ikechukwu.
Actually, yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to appreciate this very meeting, especially the important contributions that have been made. First of all, I agree totally with some of our contributions. First is trying to find an immediate solution, because this time there is no time. The way this COVID-19 is spreading, so we have to find an immediate solution. Then, and from all experience of those that have recovered, we understood that some of them took, just like the as we heard from the governor of Oyo State, what he took that helped him to recover fast. But then, how do we get our people to know this? How do we involve everyone to know that, okay, you can actually be taking this for this very period of time? You can actually be taking this to protect yourself. Then a lot of people are waiting to have vitamin C. I mean, buy vitamin C from market. But then there's some local fruits that we can be get our people to be taking from radio stations. We said, okay, take more of orange, look for mango, take this. It gives you a lot of vitamin C. It helps to rebuild your immune system. That is, I think that we can do much on the area of information dissemination, telling our people exactly what they should be doing this to protect, to build up their immune system. Then secondly, we have to, I thank God that I think some of our governors that actually took earlier actions to make sure that the movement are curtailed, then not allowing so many people to move in, just like what is happening in Lagos. Lagos is actually in a problem because they said everyone should sit at home. You notice that a lot of people are not sitting at home. They are still moving. You understand? So, but in Southeast, then they took earlier actions, and that has helped them a lot. So we will do much, at least, to allow people to sit at home. Let them not be moving, because once one person is sick and he is not aware that he's sick, it can actually transfer the sickness faster to others without knowing it. So we can do much of that. And then, and the long run, in terms of economy, what will help us, because there is actually a problem when you talk of world economy and the Nigerian economy, then our state governors should invest in agriculture. The rain season is coming. They should invest in agriculture. That will help our economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to put out a disclaimer here. You've mentioned things people take to recover. You know, some of them could be placebo. Now, there are no scientific proof. This is a disclaimer, please. There are no scientific proof that if you take black bean or black whatever, and you don't know Governor Makinde, what he took, as he said, we don't know if he has any other underlying issues. So it could be it worked for him, but whatever you take, it is at your own risk. We are not here suggesting that you take A or you take B. Please seek medical advice. Therefore, I will be inviting Chinedu now to make his contribution. Then Tim Elomba gets ready. Chinedu, over to you. You are on. Okay, if Chinedu is not on, Tim, get ready. Okay, Chinedu is on now. Tim, wait. Chinedu, go ahead. You have 2 seconds. No. Tim Elomba, go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is Tim Elomba speaking from Abuja. Am I clear?
Yes, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The topic of this discussion is COVID-19 turning a crisis into opportunities where our governors. For a start, Igbos are known as traders and businessmen, especially in Nigeria here, and anywhere in other places by their trade. Now, I have been thinking how our government can take opportunity of this and capitalize on the one we are already known for, which is trading of business. What I mean is this. Just yesterday, Jeff Bezos posted that he had made a profit of $24 billion from COVID-19 alone. That is why companies are shutting down. It is practically soaring on higher scales. And he is a trader, if we want to bring it close to us. He's a trader. He buys and he sells. And that is what we have been doing here, and many of us have not been able to muster up just $1 million. And somebody has made within a short while $4 billion. Therefore, I am not an economist here, but I've been thinking how our economies can work in tandem with our state governments to probably digitize most of these businesses we have been trying to do on analog basis. How to bring them up to speed with the technology generation, so that most of these businesses can be technology based, and that I think can enhance or improve their productivity. Because if we always depend on this petty buying and selling stuff, like my brother once said, he said any business that is not online or that is not connected one little way or the other online today is as good as non-existent. So I am thinking how we can we can make a case from Jeff Bezos and see how our government also can come into this picture and make COVID-19 an opportunity for traders, which many of us, our Igbo brothers, are, how they can make an opportunity of it. Of course, we cannot be like the Bezos, but we have to start somewhere. That is fine.
Thank you very much. I would be calling on Ejo Egwatu to please make your contribution now. You raised your hand for a while, so please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, very loud and clear.
Okay, my take is on the medicals. Now, how prepared are our doctors? If you go to the hospitals now, if you have any kind of sickness, the doctors don't allow you to get into the hospital. You have problems with any kind of treatment. So we need to get these equipments that the doctors need, these protective equipments, and keep them working, enlighten them so much. Another thing is enlightening the people too. You know, in Anambra State, we only had one case or something like that, and the people never believed that such a thing was real. Their reasoning was that the government was just trying to make money. How can government make money from this kind of thing? So we need to be enlightening. There has to be a very serious enlightenment program down to the villages. In Onitsha, for instance, the Obi of Onitsha has set up a COVID-19 committee, and we have gone down to the villages to identify people who need help, people who need social, so provide so many things that they need, get funding from individuals who are wealthy, who are from Onitsha. Now, if we can spread it to each and every community, it's going to help us a lot.
Okay.
Finally, there is need for us to look at what are the medical health centers, the condition of hospitals generally, aside COVID-19, the condition of hospitals are very, very bad. There is need to look into these things as we are treating COVID-19 cases. Thank you very much. I don't want to go into economy too much because I think
thank you very much. The question now that is online, I'm taking some questions from people who are commenting online. There is a valid question here. Everyone has been blaming the government, saying the government could do this, governors. The question is, what can the citizens' action be? Can there be any citizen-led action, initiatives that can help? Dan, what do you think?
Okay, those raising up their hands, do they have anything to say about citizen-led actions? Chima Christian has been raising up his hand for a while. Can we recognize him?
Chima, can you go ahead now? Chima, you're now away from mute.
Spencer, and thank you for this opportunity.
Just 1 minute, Chima, go ahead.
My major contention is not on citizen participation. I am more interested in how our states can acquire sample collection and testing capabilities independent of, and yet with supervisory assistance of federal authorities. Because the 13 or 14 days our governors has brought with they lock down. If they don't acquire capacities for testing, then we might have squandered that time frame. On citizen participation, I think individuals will do well. Those who can afford it to stay at home, those who have compelling reasons to go out, should try to protect themselves and others using masks and all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. What you just said aligns with what Professor DeGallo said. Assets identification vis-a-vis assets aggregation. Sorry, Dan, you were saying something.
Chinenye, please.
Okay, Chinenye has spoken before.
Has he? Okay, has he spoken before?
So Chinenye.
No, he hasn't.
He has. Chinenye, go ahead once more.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, what I have to say, good to be in this room. Yeah, citizens' action, awareness creation. We understand that government alone cannot disseminate the information down to the grassroots as required. Someone has mentioned what happened in Onisha. We can mobilize civil activities, civil societies, communities, town hall. In my area, what our local unions are the ones sharing face masks to churches, to rural women and communities, and disseminating this information. We must encourage the wearing of masks and other PPEs, because we cannot lock down the states and economy forever, for a very long time, because of our subsistent economic situation. We need to improve our capacity for testing. That has been said severally. We need to test more people. We need to think about the post-COVID economy. I'm worried about the security situation that will come when we open the economy, and a lot of jobs may have been lost and all that.
Yeah.
We need to prioritize efforts to improve our local economies. This can be a joint activity between government and the citizens. This body can become an advisory body for state government to look at areas we can expand our SME ecosystem. Igbos are involved in a lot of entrepreneurship and economic activities, and that can be mainstreamed in such a way that we can use it to create more jobs, for our teeming youth who may be out of the streets, post when we open the streets.
Okay.
I'm worried about the picture being painted in this issue of palliatives. We are sharing rice, sharing indomie, sharing all kinds of food in rural communities, and we need to look at if our people are hungry and poor. I don't actually agree to that. Most people who live in rural villages have farms. They live on the proceeds from farms. They have cassava, they have yam, they have vegetables. What we need to actually invest more resources than buying rice, bags of rice and all that, is to invest in improved seedlings. Next year, because of this crisis, the COVID crisis, and the crisis in the north, there may be scarcity of food. Improved yield from our people. We put a lot of food from our places in the market. Today, the price of garri has risen over 300%, and that has put more money in the pocket of the rural woman who produces garri from the villages. So this is a way to show that if we invest a lot of resources on improved yields for cassava, yam, and all other agricultural products, by next year, they will be smiling to the banks.
Okay.
Again, this
sorry, I need to stop you. Sorry, I need to stop you. We need to round up now.
I'm rounding up. Investment in technology. We need to build our capacity, the capacity of our local SMEs to invest so much in technology, taking their business online, digital addressing, having a digital identity. There are some hubs in Aba, in Enugu. I visited some that are doing that. We need this kind of forum can expand on that and advise government on that. Someone mentioned about PPEs. Very important for our medical personnel to have adequate PPEs, because like the briefing yesterday, they said over 40 medical personnel are tested positive COVID. That will be a crisis for a country that does not have enough medical personnel. So those are some of the areas that needs to be looked into. Finally, we can start advising governments on economic issues, because we noticed a lot of politics being played around this COVID. Most governments don't look at tomorrow. I'm in government myself, but I noticed that politicians don't look at tomorrow. They think about elections. It's important to look at the future of the economic future of our young people, the artisans and the SMEs, and how to strengthen and build a sustainable SME ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, on a final point, before Daniel Lumba summarizes and we call it a day, I will be inviting Chinedu Vincent Akuta to please have the floor. Akuta, for some reason, I'm not able to mute you. Can you please unmute yourself and go ahead? Akuta, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Just make it brief.
Yeah,
1 minute,
just
please.
briefly. Thank you all the speakers and thank you all the attendees for the meeting. I quite enjoyed the whole contributions and all comments. My question is this: what do we do from now, individual-led or citizens-led, from this meeting now? What can we be able to do?
Thank you very much. Very short and simple. So, Dan, are you taking that on?
Well, the purpose of this meeting is to chart a path forward. And I can assure you we are taking down all the points made here. We'll compile a report. We make suggestions. We try to see those that they feel the government will do. We channel our communication to them. Those we feel that individuals will do. We contact organizations that will help to put them into effect. So, and of course, my brother Chinedu, what we are doing here is the solutions we are advocating here is not just it's not a talk shop. We see how we can put a lot of them into practice. That is what we are here for. We'll do something, we'll put a plan into action. If possible, at the end of the day, we contact all the contributors here, see, okay, can we get the committee to, marshal up our own task force, different from the presidential task force that we have not seen whatever they are doing so far. Please, since you are talking about, we need, please, I indulge you to ask Honorable Chris Azubo, who has been raising up his hand, because we need people who have connection to the government to help us to reach across to them. So maybe he's been raising up his hand for a while. I don't know whether maybe he has something else to contribute towards this our effort, please, if you don't mind.
Chris, go ahead.
Is he gone?
Chris, you have been unmuted. I don't know. Maybe he's gone. I don't know. So
okay.
If he's still sticking around, go ahead.
Okay, he's on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead. Daniel, go ahead.
Okay, I thought Chris Asborg is talking now. Is he?
I can't see him. I can't see him talking. He's not on mute, so.
Okay. Another person that I'm raising up his hand here for a while is Arinze Ibagwa.
Okay.
Do you mind if he maybe has something to say for 1 minute?
Arinze and the Galaxy.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone. I was actually typing before you now called on me. Thank you very much. I just want to be brief. We've been talking about using or leveraging on what we have in house. One thing important is that the spread of COVID-19 is mainly via fluid contact or it's a little bit of airborne in the sense that breathing, if you stay close to me and I breathe out and you breathe in, therefore there is possibility of it spreading. Therefore, that is where the masks come in handy. Everybody wearing mask will reduce the spread of COVID-19. Incidentally, mask is nothing but just a piece of clothing that stops things from passing through. Aba, as we know, are very good in clothing manufacturing. They can sew masks in millions if we can organize ourselves. At the same time, they can sew PPEs. We don't need to go to China. We don't need to go to anywhere to seek for masks and PPEs. We can do that in-house. We can get manufacturers in Aba to do this and supply it. Government can work with these guys. There is no science beyond clothing and fabric stopping the spread of what I breathe out and what you breathe in. and again, liquid content. So PPEs for our medical personnel, mask for everybody. The government can actually work with the guys in Aba or in Onitsha or anywhere in-house and mass produce this. There are a lot of people you can assemble to start sewing them. There's nothing else apart from just being fabrics to stop something transmitting. That's one. Another thing I want to mention here is I've been in several forums online, Facebook, and WhatsApp. There is a lot of misinformation going on amongst our people. So much that people who don't know are easily to fly with those misinformations going on, and they tell you something like there's nothing like COVID-19, is all blah, 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 blah. I don't know how to get into all these very social medias. Maybe via our pastors or maybe via our Reverend Fathers, because I see that people listen more to pastors and listen more to Reverend Fathers or whatever, more than doctors. Yeah. So this is what I'm just saying. These two things, government leveraging on people in our bar and on that manufacture clothing and bringing them together to manufacture PPEs and masks, and a way of stopping the spread of misinformation. Thank you.
So Chris Azubog is now back on. Chris, can you go on? Chris Azubog, Honorable Chris Azubog, you are back on. Can you go ahead, please? It appears Chris Azubog is having issues with his connections. Galaxy A30, can you go ahead, please? Galaxy A30, yes. Can you go on Galaxy A30X?
Okay.
So it appears not. So Dan Elomba, the ball is in your court once more.
Okay, we thank we thank everyone here who made the effort to join this meeting. This is the first part of this meeting, and one of the problems we noticed is that our Zoom meeting has capacity for only 100 people. And a lot of people are sending me messages that they are trying to join the meeting, but they are not able to do so. So I think during our next meeting, maybe we'll look at expanding this meeting. So we'll make it more available for a lot more people to join it, more than this 100 capacity we have. We stopped a lot of people from joining. Another thing another message I'm receiving is if our comment is restricted to the Southeast. So that's another thing we have to consider. Do we make this a national conversation, or do we continue just to have our Southeast conversation where majority of us are from?
I think the initial conversation was meant to be for the Southeast and the South-South. However, you cannot. It's not planned that we have many people or overwhelmingly many people from the Southeast. So hence the conversation felt as if it's tilting to the Southeast discussion. So sorry, go ahead.
Okay, another point many people mention here is how do we get our message across to the governors, because we are tired of the federal government. The federal government cannot help in what we are foreseeing that is coming. So we will see how we can. The effort will be made to channel to make sure that our communication reaches those who are able to put it into practice. Many people also commented about citizen-led action. Well, that is what CESNET is all about, has always been all along. So we will have that conversation to see if there are things we can do as citizens to lead this action, to see how we can turn this COVID crisis into an opportunity. Someone mentioned Aba has always been a recurring theme. I don't see why the Abia state government, for instance, cannot provide grants for the Aba people who can produce almost most of the things we need now to produce them for the Southeast. We have a lot of people in India, and Aba who can produce these things. So why can't they? In the UK, for instance, a lot of small-scale businesses are going to the bank today and smiling away, £25,000. Well, if you're an employer of labor, just apply, they give you £25,000.
so that you keep your business going. So why can't our state governors do something like that? So we intend to keep this conversation going. We thank you very much for coming in. We'll summarize our input and see how we can put them into practice.
Okay.
That is what I want to say now.
So,
thank you very much for attending.
So in conclusion, what we, for those of you who want to be part of the conversation as it goes, you can go to Facebook, look for the group SESNet. It's spelled SE, that is Southeast South South Network. You can join the group. I think there is also a WhatsApp group. Maybe from that group, you want to be part of it in WhatsApp group, you can as well do. And in conclusion, one thing we're gonna do here is there will be an aggregation of all the contributions here. Watch out in the newspapers as the governors and the stakeholders will be engaged. There will be press release coming out. So it's not going to be just one-off. What we want to do is, as the COVID pandemic develops, as events unfolds, we are likely to have more meetings like this. And watch out, and we will thank you for being part of us, and also thank you that you're going to join us whenever we call on you and engage. It's all about engagement. Engage in the little capacity you can. 1 + 1. One person reaches the other. The message gets across. Be it within your community. The message is very clear. We keep washing our hands, observe social distance, and if you can, please stay at home to save a life. Once more, thank you all for joining us. My name remains Mazezoke. Peace out.
Mazi, I hope you don't.
Person you're calling.